again. So we want to do the empathic listening. We've got about 45 minutes for empathic listening on the chapter. So we can, I'll share the chapter so we can do some practice of empathic listening and talk about the chapter as well as continue the discussion that we've had. So let me bring that up. And the chapter 3, this is just the summary for the chapter. So we were on chapter 3 of the Listening Well, Art of Empathic Understanding. And he starts off with a quote from the famous Stephen Covey. Most people do not listen with the intent to understand. They listen with the intent to reply. And he introduces the Thomas Gordon model of that someone has meaning. They translate the meaning into a spoken word, and in that point, a problem can happen. You know, kind of a break can happen. The spoken word is heard by someone else, and that's also a problem area where disconnection, inaccuracies can happen. And then the heard words go for the other person into meaning, their understanding of their meaning. And that's also a point where a problem can happen. This is another version of that model that I found on the internet. What the speaker means, they encode what the speaker says, what's heard, the decoding, and what the listener thinks the word means. This one, they added the reflection, which we do in the empathy circle, and we're about to go into. And this was another little model, but with people. I want to kind of build on this model to make it more personal. So then he goes into the benefits of being heard, says the speaker feels like they matter, speaker feels heard and understood. The benefits for the listener, heads off misunderstanding, deepens relationship. Over time, the listener grows emotionally, can see the interconnectedness of life. And that was it. That was some other questions. So we can now go into the empathic listening and the timekeeping. Deb, you're going to keep the 5 minutes per speaker. And we can discuss the chapter or continue the discussion that we were having about the design of the MOOC, and or anything that's alive in you. So who would like to start, and who would you like to speak to? And
can I just come back because my bladder is quite alive right now? So I need to come back.
So I'm hearing your bladder is alive. And
I'd be willing to start.
Okay.
And Alex, would you be willing to listen to me?
Yeah, sure.
So as I was reading this, which of course, like I said before, it's really familiar to me, but I really love the the way that he does Thomas Gordon's model in this chapter and the wording of it. And I'm going to incorporate the wording of it into my training, how he thinks about it. But I think the thing that really stands out to me is that the guessing thing, that in order to do this, you have to be able to put yourself aside and to not assume you're right, or that you know what the person means, or you know how they think, or even if it's someone that you're really close to, of letting go of your own assumptions and being willing to guess and not be. I know when I'm teaching this, people are so afraid to guess because they feel like they're going to be wrong, and it isn't about right or wrong. So I've been really thinking about how you help people tap into that guessing capacity, which really requires so much of them. Want to reflect?
Yeah. Okay. Great. Okay. So you have a lot of experience with this, but the thing about the chapter that you really found interesting was this idea of sort of needing to guess, and this idea that you don't necessarily know everything about what's going on in the other person, and what you found in your experience is that that's a hard step for people, because it is kind of this, like, I don't know, ego drop or something, where it's like, I don't know, and I might be wrong, and I might make a mistake or whatever. And so people are not willing to take the leap sometimes and try and make a guess. And so that's something that you're trying to help people kind of feel more comfortable doing.
Well, and I think it really, how this really gets presented in our MOOC, if you will, how it really, it will make a difference, because when of people needing to understand what it really takes to be in that space where you can guess. So the other thing that happens is people are learning reflective listening is that when it starts out really technical, like, can I make a reflection? And they're usually very simple, and they're just kind of repeating back, and they're afraid to take any leaps or, to make any, to go deeper. And they're constantly thinking in their head about, what am I going to reflect? What am I going to reflect? And that, just as Carl Rogers was saying, they're so busy trying to reply. And there's a point at which, when you're learning this, that you realize that if you just open yourself to being receptive, that everything you need will come from the client or the person in front of you. They will give you everything that you need. Your job is to receive and to be able to allow that reflection to emerge. And you don't have to manufacture it, and you don't have to make it. But that is a big step, to be in that space where you can trust that everything will come. And that and the reason it's not right or wrong is because just like he mentions in here too, the person who's doing the talking doesn't come in with everything laid out. It's not like you're just trying to find the right thing in there. This is a creative process. These conversations are creative. So that's our 5 minutes. Do you want to reflect?
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, it seems like, especially with the MOOC, when people are learning all these new skills, and it is kind of in this formal manner, people can kind of get in their heads and be like, okay, I need to do this step and this step and this step and this step. And like, you would like to sort of like impart to them that, like, if you just sort of trust the process, like, they'll get the information they need, and they don't need to get so focused on their part of it or something like that.
Yeah. Well, they usually have to start there, though. They have to start with the manufacturing, in their head about it, or they won't, it's a long time before it gets there. But Thank you. I feel heard.
Okay, great. Thank you. Do I go next, or I don't know how this? Okay.
Yep, you select who you'd like to speak to, and you have 5 minutes.
Okay, and do I talk about this chapter?
It's the chapter, whatever is alive in you.
Okay.
Or whatever is alive, so it's just,
okay.
You're not like constrained to the chapter. It's like, if you feel energy around anything, you can go with your energy.
Okay. Well, I think if I were to talk about the chapter, I would say.
Who are you speaking to? So you just.
Oh, sorry.
First.
I'll talk to Deb. Cool. Well, yeah. So I was going to say, if I were talking about the chapter, I think I would have said what Denise said. So maybe I'll talk about, like, what's alive in me. So yeah, I guess, being pretty new to this group, I'm still learning what it's all about, and so one thing that I'm, like, very curious about is like clearly a good bit of time is spent on sort of the vision and the planning of the project, and so I'm also curious about how much like within the group there's chances to practice the stuff just within this group of people here, beyond the time that we spend planning things.
Okay, I'm gonna see if I heard you correctly. You're new to this group, and you're interested in the project, but in how we're planning things. I'm not sure I heard the thread of what you're saying. You're interested in the planning of the project?
Well, sorry. So I've been in 2 meetings, and so far, like a good bit of the time was spent on the planning of the MOOC and the whole empathy project. And I'm curious to see how much of the time gets spent also just practicing the skills here.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you have an interest? Do you have an interest in practicing the skills?
Yeah.
Okay. So you'd like to have that come out?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I just because like I think the project is really cool, and like I got really excited when I found the empathy tent on YouTube, and I think it is really cool. But I also like, I guess I'm not totally like attached to the outcome yet, because I just started. I'm just kind of getting to know everybody and know what the process is about. So like, you know, I am like enthusiastic about helping it, but I also sort of like, there's a part of me that just wants to actually get a chance to practice some of the stuff from the book, and not with any larger goal, but just with the point of just getting better skills myself.
So you have an interest in building the skill for yourself, and not too much interested right now at the bigger picture and the goals or any outcomes. You're new to this, so you're just wanting to get involved and get your skills built up.
Yeah, I think I have interest in the bigger project too, but it's like, yeah, I guess like I wouldn't want to only be working on that project. Like a big part of what I was, you know, like looking to get out of this group is to be around people who are, you know, practicing these skills, and get a chance to practice them myself, just so I can kind of like bring that out in my own personal life. So like separate from the activism element. That's one thing that I was kind of hoping to get from it.
Okay, so you'd like to use the skills more for your personal life and just build your practice and knowledge and experience of what is empathic listening, what is empathic reflection, and the bigger goals are of interest to you, but just not now.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I feel like conflicted or something, because I want to help with the project, but I also want to like get just the personal benefit out of it. Yeah.
So you feel some inner conflict because you want to help with the project, but you also want to get your experience of what it means to work with it personally.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So I'll go. So what I've came up with for me, and who am I speaking to? Jessica? Thank you. Is on the second page of the third chapter, it says empathy not only involves attention to connecting with people, but involves active interest in understanding what he or she is experiencing. So I find that as a point of conflict, because going back on what we've all been saying, the first step is really being able just to hear and reflect back what was said. In that, understanding what he or she is experiencing is really a later, deeper, more matured part of this practice. Mm-hmm. And for a beginner, that's where I think people are possibly thinking they're supposed to interpret because, oh, I know what you're experiencing. So when I think of this phrase and what I'm trying to explain, I kind of go back to NVC, and that there's a model there too, where the big part is guessing, but you're asking questions, which is a part of this too. But I think this phrase is a little premature in the chapter in the book.
Mm-hmm.
I think it adds a layer of confusion for newbies.
Yeah. So you've been putting yourself in the newbie shoes, and as you were reading this sentence, it's kind of activated you because you're like, oh, hold on, this is too premature.
Mm-hmm.
And so now you're kind of concerned that it might confuse people in their practice of empathy, and that that's you're thinking maybe it's something that should come later in the book. And you're comparing, maybe not comparing, but you were thinking about the NVC model,
Mm-hmm.
where they go a bit deeper before having to guess what the person is experiencing.
Yeah, the MVC model, I can't quite remember exactly why that popped up, but I'm much more familiar with that. I'm just saying that, yes, what you said is correct in reflection. And I just think there's a philosophical component here to understanding what he or she is experiencing. I don't see the steps. I would like to see steps. And I think that might clarify, because he's got, so far I haven't read the whole book. I'm just sticking with the chapters. But I think there is some convergence of theory and steps and not enough steps. And that there in the third chapter so early on you're right, again, I have a concern that it's confusing to people about then thinking they have the right to interpret what someone is saying from an experiential point of view versus a factual point of view.
Yeah. You mentioning that you're more familiar with NVC and that you actually enjoyed the fact that there's clear steps in the model.
Mm-hmm.
And you're wondering at this sentence, he's mentioning steps, and then suddenly he's mentioning about experiencing someone else's experience, trying to understand someone else's experience. It's maybe too, you mentioned philosophical.
Mm-hmm.
That it's throwing someone off. You might throw a new person and be like, oh, hold on, wow, that might feel overwhelming and a bit scary maybe for someone who's trying to follow step by step the empathy and the reflection, and you are concerned, wondering, you are not sure if this is maybe the right place for that right now.
Yes.
I'm not sure if you need anything else.
Yeah, I'd like to see more steps up front.
Yeah.
I so far from what I've read in the 3 chapters, it's heavy into his intent and philosophy, which is good, but I think it needs the format is not leading me to understand what are the exact steps. I mean, I know what they are, but as a new reader, the exact steps for reflecting back the facts that I heard you say.
All right. Yeah, you want that's why you were mentioning about NVC, like there's clear step over there, and then you would like to see that there as a format to enter right away in the book, where someone, a new person, can clearly see, oh, okay, this is what's going to happen, and this is what I'm going to have to do. Mm-hmm. And the fact that the starting with laying out the foundation by just explaining a bit philosophically what is it all be about, it's getting a bit confusing, and maybe someone might lose interest and be like, I'm not clear what's happening here, and this is too much, and not clear enough. We'd like to see some clear steps. Yeah.
As far as the book goes, and I'm sorry, that quote came from chapter 2. My book fell. But anyway, yeah, it's chapter 3. It is talking about it. I take that back. But it's the parts of active listening and empathy and empathic reflecting. It just doesn't seem very clear to me. So the little boxes are there, but I don't know. I would just like to see it a little more basic. I mean, take it down to a 6th grade level.
Yeah, to really simplify it for someone who has no clue what empathic listening is, to really break it down to the simplest way possible.
Thank you. I feel heard.
Oh, thank you. Denise? What do I want to talk about? There's so many things alive. I was pondering about, as I'm building business on my own, discovering the joy of entrepreneurship as a coach and as a facilitator with someone else as well. I'm feeling very inspired by this kind of work, by those people who are able to write books like that. And I'm feeling envious, but in a positive way. So inspired, but also like, how come I cannot do that yet? Or how come I'm not doing it? Creating materials, trainings, and so that's why I want to do more. And at the same time, and I want to make money. I don't want necessarily to become a billionaire, but I'd like to not think of money problem anymore. And I'm wondering, I'm feeling conflicted, and I'm wondering, how is it possible to bring empathy, to bring training, coaching, and VC? I'd like to do a lot of different things, and asking money for it. Like, I feel a bit conflicted of those kind of things. I agree that the MOOC should be free, and at the same time, I'm like, yeah, but how am I going to feed myself if this is what's passionate for me? Does that mean I have to do it like only on volunteer time, or can I actually make money out of that? And I'm feeling a bit conflicted. So there's 2 layers here. Conflicted about this idea of asking people money for soft skills like that I think should be open and accessible to everybody. And the other layer is, wow, I'm not putting enough work to be able to do what I want. Like, I'm realizing I'm in this shift in my business when I'm like, oh, and it's like suddenly thinking, it was this realization that, oh, I need to put some work into it if I actually want to make work. Like, so far I've been doing here and there, but I'm not like very focused on doing tasks every single day that's going to bring bigger goals. I'm a bit too messy.
Can I reflect a minute?
Yeah, right.
There's a lot. So I was struck by that you have a vision, and even in looking at this book of like being able to see, wanting to be in that position where you can contribute in that way, and that you can develop materials or curriculum or trainings that would be enhancing for people. And at the same time, you're really looking at your own livelihood and wanting to be able to feel secure, a bit secure in your livelihood and your ability to do that. And you're kind of wondering how those fit together, and how you might be able to bring your sense of generosity to bear with the sense of being able to take care of yourself.
Perfect. Yeah, exactly. And it's always going to be there, and I want to find a way to balance that, to feel comfortable in what you meant saying, being generous and being at the same time happy about the fairness of what I'm asking for, and still feeling I'm contributing really, and I'm not just a salesman.
Mm-hmm. So you want to have something of substance, that you bring, and you have a strong sense of fairness, that you want to not be gouging people for what you have to offer, and yet really valuing what it is that you do have to contribute, and wanting to be have that come into play too, be compensated for that as well.
Yeah, exactly. And the other part is just realization that after 2 years of running a business, that what it takes really on a concrete level, on an everyday level, it's great to have big goals. And I never achieved the big goals because it feels overwhelming. So I'm just messing around. And I just get a client here and there, but I'm not being focused and what's the word I'm looking for? Consistent. That's the word I'm looking for. I realized that recently, and now I'm like, oh, okay. Am I going to be able to do that then? Is consistency something I can do?
So you have an idea about the goals that you would like, and they're feeling a little far off, and you're starting to realize that there are some steps there that you're thinking, am I ready to kind of take these steps and really put the effort into that, and on a consistent, can I be consistent and build that and build to that?
Exactly. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, it's perfect. Thank you. I've been heard.
So Edwin, you haven't had a chance to talk.
Mm-hmm. Yep. I talked a lot before, but yep.
So you want me to go again? Or
no. Yeah, you're up. You can select me to speak to if you wish. Yeah.
Let's do that.
Okay.
I'll give you a chance to,
so I'm hearing you've noticed I haven't reflected yet.
Well, and it's funny because that happened to me when I went away last week. It was really one thing I really noticed about participating in the circle is that when I didn't get a chance to talk about what I was thinking about the chapter, I was really frustrated by that because it was rattling around in there, and that's one thing that we talk a lot about in MI training is that the kind of conversations that we have really help people organize and discover their own internal, when you're listening to someone, it helps them discover their own internal, their values connected with it. It helps them organize their conversation, their thoughts. It helps people to look at, put it out so that you come to know what you believe by what you say, and you get it out there, and then you can actually look at it. It offers you an opportunity to see yourself from a different perspective when someone reflects back. And I really noticed that it was still rattling around in my head last week.
Okay, let me reflect that. So at the end of the last meeting, you had some things you really wanted to say, and you could feel them rattling around in your head, and maybe feeling a little frustrated. They weren't able to be expressed. And that's kind of, that's bringing up all the benefits of empathic listening, that when you are heard, you're able to have those, that rattling kind of be expressed, and it helps you work it through, helps you connect, and there's just all these different benefits that you're articulating about being able to share.
And just thinking about what Deb was saying too about the interpretation, because this is something that we talk about in training all the time, of helping people recognize the difference between reflecting a deeper experiential, emotional reflection rather than just the words, what you're doing when you're reflecting differently, and the fine line between that and interpretation, and the ownership of of thinking you're right about it when you do make those guesses, but it is in that deeper level, and there are steps. They will be coming a little bit, but the deeper level reflection is essential to that organization of the conversation or that organization of your thinking. It's like if you're just stuck in reflecting the words, then the conversation, it goes nowhere. It's just stays at the surface. So it is in the deeper levels where it really really connects. That's why it's even rattling around in my head. I don't necessarily put it all together until I have an opportunity to create it to have two people who are creating a conversation that allows that to emerge, that story, if you will, to emerge. There's a creative part.
Okay, so there's a depth of the listening. You can be connecting at sort of this more superficial level, but it's really when you start getting deeper in the empathic listening, and that the creativity and the integration can happen, and you're just kind of making a note of how it works. And
right, and where it allows for that real discovery, that discovery and that experience of connection to happen. Mm-hmm. It happens at the deeper level too. At least in my experience, it happens at the deeper level, and you have to kind of be prepared for that. But it does require people to make those, to practice making that, that guessing and what sometimes sounds like an interpretation, but you're just not hooked on it, but based on what the person is giving you. And I think in terms of looking at online training, I mean, this is something I've really struggled with in my online course here. It's really hard to convey that deeper experience in that kind of a format when you're so much is based on that one-to-one interaction, and that deeper discussion. It's really hard to it's really hard to get that across on the kind of format where people are not physically connected. Although, I mean, I do a lot of my work on the telephone, so you can do it on the telephone, but it's still different when you're looking at a class kind of situation about how you really convey that deeper sense.
So you're really looking at how do you convey, especially online, that deeper sense of connection, how to bring people into that deeper sense of connection. Yeah. Because that's really, so you didn't say the word, but sort of like where the magic happens. It's where right. the creativity happens, and the deeper sense of connection, and the sort of the integration that happens. And so really just how to bring people into that and make them aware of, and how to even teach that and convey that.
Yeah, that was a great reflection, by the way.
So really appreciating the reflection.
Yeah, thank you.
Do you feel heard? Was that a complete?
I do. I definitely feel heard.
Oh, good. Then I'll speak to Alex. So yeah, I wanted to speak to, I had made a few points here. So one was your, like, how much is practice and how much is the design of the, and so it's looking at about, 50-50. So half of what we're doing is just the practice of it, kind of experiencing, going through the book. And then the other half is sort of designing. And so I would say that in terms of learning, there's the practice, and then you get to watch other people, and you also the reading. So it's kind of multi-levels of learning, but hopefully, I try to bring in at least an hour's worth of empathic listening and practice out of the 2 hours.
Okay. So you're saying there's like a 50-50 roughly between practice and the project, but you also see that there's like maybe some overlap or something where like you can get, it's not like either you're practicing or you're doing project stuff, but you can learn by experiencing through other people doing it and stuff like that too.
Yeah, and so when you said that, I felt a little concerned, like, I hope we don't lose Alex. It's like, really like his presence, you know, I have hope for, you know, your technical background that it could be a contribution. So I felt a little concerned that I wanted to put you at ease.
Okay. So when I said that, you were worried or concerned that, and because you're appreciating having me as part of the group and didn't want me to leave. And
Yeah, exactly. And so, and then there could be ideas too that I know that people are going to want more of that deeper connection. So one thing we could actually do is create like empathy buddies, have like that, you know, out of our group, we can, like we're talking it's sort of more of a technical aspects of the book and the learnings. It's not so much into the deep feelings is not the focus. And maybe we could set up some empathy buddy calls between participants, just one-on-one, and those would be a good practice where you get half an hour just to share whatever you want. You get a reflection, then you switch, and the other person gets half an hour. So that's something, if you're really wanting practice, that could be like a project, like designing an empathy buddy, you know, aspect of what we're doing. And that would be a way of getting kind of a deep dive into the practice.
okay, cool. So you're offering an idea for a way, if I wanted that that extra empathy or whatever, to do like something separate from this meeting where you pair up with somebody and just take turns just doing the exercise with each other.
Yeah, and it could become like an exercise. There's actually already an exercise listed on the website for doing that. So you could take that exercise and flesh it out, you know, create the steps for people doing an empathy buddy calls, and then others could do it too, and it could become part of what we create for each, even the course for the MOOC, that we create a process for people coming together to get that support. And then there you can have the deep, intimate, you know, kind of connection, which is, you know, can be more supportive.
Cool. Okay. So there's some exercises on the site, and you think this could also be good for other people, and even as part of the MOOC, it could be a useful thing people would enjoy.
And I did create a page for a design brief. So when we, you know, in the design community, when you create a project like this, there's a concept of a design brief where we start articulating what we want the course to be. So we have all these notes, and I think next week we can continue with the discussion about the design, you know, and just we're kind of doing the practice and then ongoing designing. And so that's like another component that I hope next meeting we can continue with, developing the design brief.
Okay, cool. So the design brief is laying out what you kind of want, I guess, from it, and you're hoping that's something you can keep iterating on and building out more.
Yeah, and the steps of, you know, how people can get the steps they can do, like you and Jess have decided to work on the aspect of what are the platforms out there. So that's, you know, it's like getting projects for people to do would be kind of like the next step too.
Okay. So yeah, so you'd like to work on the steps, also specific steps for people to take. Mm-hmm.
And how do we also, like what Deb is talking about, like we can design, you know, online, like how to make it really simple for people too. You know, it's like, there's been in other groups, people have complained, oh, this book, you know, I disagree with this or this. So, you know, how do we really, you know, design it so that it's really even more accessible than just what the book is, even though I really, really appreciate everything that Bill has created.
Mm-hmm. So you like the book, but you kind of, you want to address Deb's concerns that some of it might go too deep, too fast, or something like that, or might not offer enough explanation or something for people who are really new.
Yeah. So that's it. And I feel heard for this. So that's just the time limit. So I just wanted to we only have 5 minutes before our time is up. So I want to, maybe we could just have one round, just in like 15 seconds, any kind of thing that anyone wants to wrap up before we do our mirrored motion and then our candle. I don't know if you have any quick comments, Alex, or just, Deb, you do.
Well,
Okay, sorry. Okay, Alex, since you're a speaker, we'll take you and then Deb.
Okay. Well, I'll just say I appreciate you, kind of like addressing my concerns or whatever. So I just wanted to say I feel grateful for that.
Okay. Deb, thank you.
Yeah. So, yeah, what I've been sitting with is a little bit about maybe what I said wasn't heard. It's hard concept about what Edwin just spoke of is, how to train someone, and Denise spoke to it too, with there are layers of learning this. And I think the first layer does involve, let's just work with the facts. What did you hear?
Mm-hmm.
And then the next layer is, okay, and it gets deeper and deeper and deeper.
I see. So it's kind of using the NVC model of the facts, observations, and feelings and needs, and sort of what are the different layers of bringing people into that deeper level. So that's what you're addressing.
Connection. And that those layers may not happen within one conversation, of course. It may take months. It took me a long time just to speak to those 4 steps.
Okay.
Because people aren't used to speaking about themselves in a systematic way.
Okay, so a bit of clarity about that, and okay, great. Jessica, would you like to just wrap up?
I'm good.
Oh, you're good? Okay.
Yeah.
Denise, any final?
I'm good too.
Okay, then if everybody's good, let's go around doing a shared motion. It's like, it's like, that's it. It's like right into the camera. So get it right in the, oh, cool. It's very artistic. Deb, we'll go that direction. Do you have a motion?
I mute it. I feel good.
Okay, Alex.
I feel relaxed.
Denise.
I'm going back to my namaste. Still feeling it.
Yes.
For me, it's more like I'm more into thinking, kind of like I'm scratching my head.
Oh, good.
Not pulling hair out, just massaging.
Okay, so we'd set our intention for fostering, building a culture of empathy, and we're going to take that intention out with us for the rest of the day and week until next week, and taking a deep breath and blowing.
Yay!
Very smoky. Alrighty, then